can be rescued from its financial woes. Can you elaborate on what that proposal entails?
Look, our starting point as Cosatu is to save workers' jobs, not just our members, but all workers. Eskom is in a life and death crisis. As you saw with the SAA, things can deteriorate very rapidly. Eskom is in a similar crisis, but the difference with Eskom is that we cannot survive without it. If Eskom goes under, it won't just be the 44,000 workers at Eskom shops who will be gone, but it will be all 60 million South Africans. It will also collapse the stock market where most workers' pensions are invested. So we're intervening to protect workers and our pensions across the nation. Every part of our life is dependent upon electricity. Eskom generates 95% and transmits and distributes 100% of electricity, so we cannot live without it. We have to fix it. The problem there is too big for government alone to fix. So our proposal is basically that one is that we need an intervention plan urgently to fix Eskom. Every day with load shedding, we're losing 2 billion rand in the economy. It's causing chaos for all of us. It cannot be government alone, it must be a social compact, which includes government, business, labor, and community. We'll all come to the table and contribute, we compromise, we sacrifice for a broader national good. Our principles as Cosatu, obviously, as a union, is that no workers lose their jobs, that Eskom remain a publicly owned utility providing public service, and then there's a clear term plan to clean up the mess at Eskom. So that's it. We're saying we need to look at many intervention points because Eskom problems are multifaceted, are very complex. That ranges from the debt levels to the financial sustainability to restructuring, to dealing with corruption and overpricing, to looking at a just transition. So there's many points. We've got about 30 different intervention requirements, but our main point is let's have that discussion and debate. Let's all put proposals. We will panel beat them and let's find a solution which will address and save our country.
Are you proposing that the money be sourced to help Eskom?
All of us must contribute. The debt levels is 454 billion rand, and they borrow money to make ends meet each month. They're now spending more servicing debt than on maintenance, hence we're seeing load shedding increasing. Eskom said they can afford a debt level of about 200 billion rand. So basically, if the figures are correct, we must verify these figures are correct, because you cannot trust people on face value. If the figures are correct, they need help with 254 billion rand. Governors have that kind of money. The VAT increase only provided 13 billion rand. So you're talking a huge amount. There's no one who can afford that money on their own. So it needs to mobilize public and private financial resources from as wide as possible a variety of sources. Not just the PIC, there's been a bit too much focus on. Also the Development Bank, the Industrial Development Corporation, even the SETAs. We need to look at what the private sector can contribute, the banks, the private retirement industries, financial institutions. And we've had very positive engagement with the private sector at business at Media, where they say they are now willing to contribute towards saving Eskom, providing financing. So I think the idea is to spread the resources as much as possible, so you minimize the risk and exposure as much as possible, and we all take ownership of fixing it.
Now, you mentioned the Public Investment Corporation. Now, obviously, that touches a lot of nerves because it involves the workers' money. Will this be an investment or a bailout?
It has to be an investment. We need to say that Cosatu has always supported investing in publicly provided goods like electricity, water, education, transport. Our funds right now are invested in the stock market largely, in about 1,200 companies, which are fine. They provide an economic benefit. But there's no company which is more important to workers in the economy than Eskom. The law provides for up to 10% of our investments to be in what we call public goods, like education, transport, rail, which provide an indirect return. They may not provide a profit to you, but if you have good rails, good water, good transport, ports, it grows the economy. So then your businesses can benefit. So it would be, it's not a bad, it's an investment. And of course, look, our vantage point is that this is something which workers need. If you don't have it, then workers will be in a huge crisis. But there's conditions, the corruption, the wasteful expenditure, all of that must be dealt with. A lot of technicalities will take some time to flesh out. It's also important to remember to reassure workers and pensioners that their pensions, the Unemployment Insurance Fund, are defined benefits. They're based upon your years of service, your contributions. So even when the PIC makes a profit, your pension doesn't increase because of it. It increases for inflation. When the PIC loses money, your pension doesn't go up. It doesn't go down. So it's different than a retirement annuity, which is depending upon the profits of the stock market. For the past 15 years, the PIC has made huge profits. Its assets have tripled from 700 billion rand to 2.1 trillion rand. If the PIC is, for example, to contribute an additional 100 billion rand, that's 3% of the PIC. So there's sufficient space to maneuver within it. And that's also prudent for the PIC because the PIC can't afford for the stock market, the economy to collapse. When Nhlanhla Nene was fired as Minister of Finance, we lost 500 billion rand on the stock market in one day. That devastated pensions. So it's about avoiding that kind of a scenario to actually save our pensions and our investments across the board.
Now, speaking about protecting the investment, how is it that you'll be able to ensure that the workers' money in this investment will be safe? And how do you right now assure workers to say this is a sound investment, not only for them, but for the economy as a whole?
Sure. I think there are 3 points. So one is that there is no economy without Eskom. Eskom goes under, we can close shop as a nation. It'll take us a decade plus to recover. So you save Eskom, you save the economy, and we're already feeling the impact of Eskom's collapse. Two is that, look, any investment is a 50-50 chance. When you invest in an Edcon, there's no guarantee that it'll work, the turnaround plan. But you have to have a clear turnaround plan, clear conditions, clear timeframes and targets, and accountability. We need to flesh out the modalities. So we're saying that you're investing in Eskom, what's the guarantees? Are you doing it through a government guaranteed bond where you have a guaranteed return on investments, which has been done before? The PSC already has 104 billion rand invested in government bonds for Eskom. So you could look at that option, adding another 100 billion rand. You could look at that Eskom in space. Government can also afford additional debt. Maybe one option is that the PIC becomes a shareholder in Eskom. It holds equity. Because that'll give it a powerful stick to beat Eskom's management into line with their misbehave. To say we gave you conditions about dealing with corruption, wasteful expenditure, restructuring, slashing management and the bloated perks, dealing with overpricing by the private sector, all those things. So I think that it's one very tempting option to look at. But we have to look at a lot of the legalities and the technicalities. What are possible? What is the best options? That we're willing to engage and negotiate upon. Our point is just the principles, and we need to have a principal agreement to intervene and to save the company. And then we're very clear with government, it's conditional upon the corruption and all of that being dealt with. You can't have a blank check. And we have this discussion a year down the road because that'll be unacceptable and it'll be untenable. Workers will the anger will be beyond control of anybody. And we have to treat the workers' fears about the pensions and the money very seriously because it's not an easy or soft thing to take lightly.
Now, in the past, Cosatu has always advocated for protecting the workers' money. Why this particular option? Why not privatize instead?
The problem with privatization, well, the key problem is that private companies operate on a profit basis. They sell you shoes for profit. And then it makes it more expensive. If you make electricity a commercial commodity, it'll become very expensive. The poor won't be able to afford it, pensions won't be able to afford it, small companies won't be able to afford it. It's an essential public good, and the state exists to provide essential public goods that only it can provide across the nation, to rural areas, to disadvantaged, to informal areas, to the poor. And so you find the state then provides certain goods like roads, like rail, like social grants, like education, water, essential goods beyond which you cannot survive. So you can survive without fancy dresses and earrings and watches, but essential goods the state provides. And it's also important to remember we come from a legacy of apartheid with huge levels of inequality and poverty, so the state needs to provide those kind of goods. Our fear right now is that Eskom electricity become too expensive. The other issue is that even if you were to privatize, there's no company which should buy Eskom right now. The debt level is 454 billion rand. There's no company which has got that kind of money to buy it or would want to buy it. So that's, you have to do the reality. And also the other reality is that some people say, look, open up the generation space to IPPs. Government said they would do that because they need to add on new capacity urgently. We said that's fine. But they need to be at a market-related basis so that it's affordable to companies. But also the fact is the IPP generators right now only provide 5% of our electricity. It'll take them a decade to equal what Eskom has, and we don't have a decade to waste. We have to deal with the crisis of today.
Now, when it comes to holding Eskom accountable, should all of these discussions go well, how does Cosatu, along with government, intend to hold Eskom accountable to make sure that this time money is not wasted?
So we've laid about 30 different conditions from corruption to wasteful expenditure. Restructuring was agreed to. They've largely agreed to that. But I've also said we want to see weekly or monthly reports, not just to NEDLAC, to the Presidential Working Committee and to government, but actually to the nation. The nation needs to have a sense of confidence that trust is being rebuilt because trust in the state has been shattered by the last decade of state capture. There needs to be transparency. We've said we want to see a comprehensive forensic audit of all Eskom's contracts and expenditures, so you need to start putting in place those mechanisms. Equally, those who have stolen must be go to jail, so you need to start rebuilding a level of trust. It is going to be a tough thing, it is a risk, it's a 50-50 risk, will it succeed? But not intervening is a 100% guarantee of an economic collapse. And so we'd rather go the 50-50 route than the collapse. We'd rather intervene now before it collapses while we still have time to play with. SAA, when people woke up, it was too late. The collapse is already taking place. Then now you're just struggling to put out fires. We'd rather intervene now whilst we can see what's going to happen and we have time on our side.
Now, worst case scenario, what happens to the workers' money should Eskom collapse?
Then it's gone. There'll be no jobs, no pensions. There'll be nothing. We cry now about 2 hours load shedding a day, and that's costing 2 billion rand a day. What about 24 hours load shedding? We'll be devastated. It'll take us years to recover. You will have to go the IMF route, and the IMF will say, no, we'll give you the money, but these are the conditions, and you will accept it. It's what they did to Greece, to Ireland. In Greece, they told them within immediate effect, you were slashing all workers' salaries by 25%. You were slashing all pensioners' social grants by 25%. You will privatize every single state-owned entity. You will slash all public goods like the free tertiary education, free healthcare, subsidized public transport, social grants will be gone. The school feeding scheme will be gone. And that will have a collapse in terms of what workers earn. It will collapse the economy because then you have less money to spend in the economy. It will be very devastating. We will not at that stage yet. We think we have space to operate, but it depends upon us all contributing, both public and private, to saving it, to avoid that kind of an economic catastrophe.
So saving Eskom is not really an option, but more of a necessity.
We cannot save it, but then we mustn't cry when the economy collapses. And you can see what happens. Zimbabwe went that route. It's collapsed. It'll take it decades to recover, if ever, you know? So it's up to us. When we have the space, we're lucky in South Africa, we have sufficient space to fix it if we want to. And we've offered the government everything can be put on the table. Even we said, for example, if the headcount at Eskom is too high, do a headcount of skills audit, check what's the situation. If there's a surplus of staff at generation, you can redeploy staff to transmission where there might be a shortage. You can redeploy staff still to municipal electricity departments where there's a skills shortage. You can deploy within the public service where there are vacancies at Home Affairs, at SARS, wherever. So we're willing to have that engagement. We think if you have that engagement now, we can find solutions which address the needs of workers, of pensioners, of the state, the economy, if we do it smartly.
Now, as we conclude, has a decision been taken on this proposal? Is it final or is it still in the discussion phase?
There's no final decision. Everything is being discussed. All the matter stresses Cosatu that we have an intervention plan, that it's a social compact of government, labour, business and community, that we all contribute, compromise and sacrifice. That there's a clear turnaround plan that deals with the cause of Eskom's chaos, the corruption, the mismanagement, the looting, everything must be dealt with. The modalities about where you get the money, what are the guarantees, what are the technicalities, that must be fleshed out. That'll take a lot of work. You can't make a decision today and then think you go to the bank tomorrow to withdraw the money. A lot of work needs to be done, a lot of consultation on every single step of the way. So it's not just, you have an agreement of, say, 30 points. Each point itself might take a month, 2-3 months of technical hard work to flesh out. And then I think we must then share those plans with the public at large, with our members, to say, this is the ideas, what do you feel, are you happy, what are your alternatives? And in first, the modalities we can renegotiate upon, as part of negotiations, like when unions go to the employer to negotiate, unions will say 10% increase. The employer offer 5, we settle at 7.5. So it's about that thing. But we're very pleased at Cosatu that we're the only ones who've made proposals. We've opened the debate, we're leading the debate. People may love our ideas, may hate the ideas, that's fine. Let's contribute to that debate and let's find what's a win-win solution that addresses everybody's needs and concerns and fears, and so no one feels left out. And we've really worked hard as Cosatu to make sure that business feels included, that retirement fund feels included. We've agreed that business needs about protecting the financial safety of pensions. We need to also say how do we assist government, but the conditions must be tight. We can't allow the looting, the mismanagement to continue.